All right, everybody, welcome back to Personal Pension Radio. I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the support. I love the feedback. Keep the emails coming. Kraig with a K, K-R-A-I-G, Kraig with a K. That's about as much sign language as I know. Kraig with a K at kraigstrom.com. I am the income engineer. You hear that in the intro every time. I love the conversation around retirement income planning. But that's not all that I do. As a paralegal, I work with an amazing law firm. We do everything from estate planning, living trusts and wills, and right through really advanced tax strategies, charitable gifting, business and asset protection. Love all that. The part that really excites me is that income engineering is truly that. It is engineering all the various components of your life into a maximum income strategy. And that doesn't happen with a product. Maximum retirement income does not happen with a product. It doesn't happen with real estate. It doesn't happen with Wall Street investments. It doesn't happen with life insurance. It doesn't happen with annuities. It happens with a strategy that might include all of those things. Business assets, all of it has to be coordinated properly in order to maximize, hence the income engineering, to maximize retirement income. That's where I get all excited. I geek out on this kind of stuff. So today I am going to cover a topic that you see in the title of the episode, the topic that is getting a lot of attention lately, a lot of questions coming my way, specifically, should I refinance my house? Should I refinance? I refinanced last year. Should I refinance again? The rates are ridiculously low. Yes, they are. We'll cover that in just a minute. Now, it's important also to understand that as a financial planner, you're going to hear me refer to Wall Street, and you might catch a little bit of a little undercurrent of frustration with the Wall Street education that I received. That I don't personally feel like I received the entirety of the retirement planning education that I should have received to properly pass on to clients. Yes, that is true. It frustrates me to no end, and you'll hear me talk about the Wall Street overlords, and it really frustrates the holy heck out of me. But more importantly, it drives me to continue to have this conversation. I look back at a comment not long ago that someone said that this guy talks too much and never actually, gets to the point. Well, here's the thing. The point of this podcast, I hope personally, is that you build a relationship with a certified financial planner, whether you work with this particular certified financial planner or not, that you build a relationship with me through this podcast format, through the video. Some of you are watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook. Check me out on LinkedIn and Facebook, by the way. You can't miss me. Kraig with a K, Strom, S-T-R-O-M. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, iHeartMedia, iTunes, Stitcher, etc. Wherever you're listening to this, my hope is that you will build that relationship, that there'll be some kind of a connection, that even if we don't work together, that you personally might be more prepared to have these conversations about your specific retirement income journey. That you might ask questions perhaps in a way or to the extent that you did not otherwise think of until you heard the conversation or the discussions that I might have on this podcast. That's really the goal, is to build that relationship. Yes, absolutely. I would love the opportunity to meet with you one-on-one on a Zoom meeting, phone call, whatever it might be, so that we can go over your specific situation. Absolutely. I've worked with so many people who found me through this podcast. I just love it. That is not the first point of the podcast, is to build a relationship. So hopefully as you listen to this, you're hearing the way that a 23-year financial planning veteran speaks about the world and the Wall Street world, and as well as the legal side of the equation, and that might empower you to make decisions or to move on things, right? Speaking of decisions, big disclosure that I put in my podcast forever up front. As cool as the podcast world or the video might be, or my new microphone setup that I'm trying might make me sound, please don't act on things that you hear on my show as if you're hearing things for your specific situation. Please meet with a qualified, certified, hopefully, financial planner to go over your specific situation. Please, dear goodness me, don't act on things that you hear on financial entertainer shows. These are shows with people who do not have any licenses or oversight to be giving out financial advice, and somehow they get away with it all the time. They give out legal advice and financial advice under the guise of freedom of speech. Now, I'm a big fan of freedom of speech. I absolutely support it. However, there are certain things that can be very damaging when a certain financial entertainer might give out a soundbite advice clip to someone without truly understanding the 360-degree look of their world. That's something that I would actually be in big trouble for, but if I say it under freedom of speech, somehow that makes it okay that I can't be held responsible for something bad that happened to those folks that listen to a financial entertainer, for example. So please, all this to say again, full disclosure, I'm not a CPA, okay? I am not an attorney. I work with a great law firm as a paralegal. I really love it. It's awesome. I am a certified financial planning professional and a paralegal. And if you want to talk about your situation with me, I love it. So let me jump in. I want to set some feedback actually from folks saying, hey, where's the deal of the week? Where's the deal of the week? Because I've become kind of known for, not necessarily being a cheapskate, but always looking for a good deal. I like to find a great deal. I don't like to pay retail if I can avoid it, whether it's on cars or clothes or electronics. I like to find a good deal. So Deal of the Week will come back on the next episode with a twist. I've gotten a lot of questions about the various things that I do to save money on purchases. What are my favorite shopping sites and various things that I use? I'm going to ask you as well. Please send me an email, Kraig@kraigstrom.com, and tell me, what are your favorite bargain hunting sites? Where do you shop for bargains? Where do you shop for your upcoming Christmas or Hanukkah season? I would love to hear your feedback. I'm going to share mine on the next episode, but please send me your suggestions. Kraig with a K at kraigstrom.com. So I want to start with watch your step this week for sure, because this was very interesting. You heard me say this just now, that unlike financial entertainers, I am actually a licensed, certified financial planning professional. I'm also a chartered financial consultant. I'm also an investment advisor representative. All this, and I'm a licensed insurance agent. All of this means that I have a ton of continuing education where I have to take classes and tests every year to keep up all of my licensing. It costs money, it costs time, and I went through that process, not just recently. I went through this process of doing all of my continuing education. I forget how many hours and hours of continuing education I had to do for all my various licenses, for all of the compliance overlords. I now have completed all of my continuing education. But I want to share with you this, because I say this, and I alluded to this, that I was going to bring this up earlier, that the Wall Street overlords, yes, I am an investment advisor rep, yes, I am a CFP, but that doesn't mean that I have to go lockstep along with everything that Wall Street teaches and says. As a matter of fact, I push back and I say, that is not right, or it's half right, or I don't agree with that. One of those big ticket things that frustrates me is this idea of retirement income planning fits into a box. Let me see where I get my hands, like a box, right? That's not true. Retirement income planning is a much larger process that requires both accumulation and distribution. It's that two sides of the mountain, and Wall Street's answer to retirement income is be very careful with how much you take out, because we're not really sure what our rate of return is going to be every year. So we better be very, very conservative with how much you take out. So hence the 4% rule came into existence, gosh, way back in 1994. Way back in 1994. Now think about that, folks. Think about that. I say that sarcastically. Way back in 1994, the 4% rule was posed by William Bengen. Okay, so William Bengen was the big guy, who created this 4% rule, because he was studying retirement income distributions, and he did this big long study way back, through the years, and he figured that if you take out 4% of your retirement income nest egg, 4%. Now remember, you got some financial entertainers out there who say, oh yeah, you're going to earn a 12% average rate of return. Really? When you get to retirement though, Wall Street says 4%. You're going to take out 4%. Now the 4% rule, we can have a deep dive conversation into that one specific thing, and that's not my point today. My point in this section is to watch your step, because I've said it before. I've said that Wall Street controls the marketing machine and they control the dollars for education. Wall Street, they direct the education that financial planners and financial advisors like me, they direct it. You don't believe me? This is what I want to share with you. One of the continuing education classes that I had to take was on retirement income. Now this is through a college that contracts, of course, with the SEC and the various regulatory bodies and insurance companies and so forth to create the continuing education that is approved by all these regulatory bodies. Think Wall Street, right? The big W, okay? So this is the question that caught my eye, and I actually clipped it and saved it to share with you, so that you ever doubt that Wall Street and the education machine is focused on their way of thinking, right? I've said this before. Wall Street does not have any financial incentive to teach me how to teach you to take more money out of their system. That is retirement income, right? Maximum income would be the goal for most people. Wall Street has no financial incentive to teach me how to teach you to take more money out. And I've said it 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. Here's the question that I saw, number 6 on a question for a test I had to take. To minimize the risk of prematurely depleting one's assets, most advisors suggest choosing a withdrawal rate equal to what amount per year? I'm going to read it again, right? This is straight out of one of my continuing education classes for my certified financial planning designation. To minimize the risk of prematurely depleting one's assets, retirement income assets, most advisors suggest or recommend choosing a withdrawal rate equal to what amount per year? Okay, 1%, 4 to 5%, 8%, 9%, gotta get that other finger, 9%, or 10 to 12. You guessed it, 4 to 5% was the correct answer. Ding, 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 you win a prize. I passed the test, I passed the test, I passed the education piece. But I'm telling you folks, Wall Street controls the education machine. Think about that. You've got financial advisors and especially big name financial entertainers. I swear they're paid by Wall Street because they're constantly pitching this idea that you can get an 8, 9, 10, 12% average rate of return on your investments. They never talk about, hey, what happens when I get to retirement? Well, when you get to retirement, Wall Street doesn't have a good plan for that. So their plan is, yeah, no, 8%, 10%, 12%, you maybe should only take out 4%. And by the way, if you only take out 4%, you have an 86% chance that you won't run out of money. Think about that, folks. You have a 14% chance that you'll run out of money before you die. That's not good, right? How many people would get on a plane if the pilot came to the microphone and she said, yeah, we've got a 14% chance that we will not make it to our destination? Most people would not get on that plane. So Wall Street's answer to the retirement income scenario is, let's just teach the advisors to teach the general population to take out less. Let's take out less. Yeah, I know we told them we were making 8 or 12%, but let's tell them to only take out 4%. That should be okay. And sure enough, there it is, right in one of my continuing education classes. The correct answer is between 4 and 5%. If you want to talk about your own retirement income scenarios and the recommendations that you're getting, please feel free. Send me an email, Kraig with a K at kraigstrom.com, and we'll have a conversation about it. I'll take you through it. I'll teach you about the 4% rule. I'll teach you about all the things about retirement income that you may not have heard from your advisor. So I want to get into a question actually. On the last episode, I did share, for some of you who have not heard this episode, you might want to go back and catch episode 247. My daughter graduated from college. You have got to hear the gigantic amount of money that my daughter got with her college degree. Oh my gosh, it was awesome. But this time I actually want to share a question that I got from a listener. Randy wrote in and basically had a simple question. I'm going to summarize it. Should I refinance our house? Now, Randy gave me a lot more detail in his email, but really that's the big question that I want to share in this episode, is my feedback on that great question. Should you refinance your home, right? That right now today, when I'm recording this in 2020, interest rates have still been ridiculously low. I mean, just crazy low. My wife and I refinanced a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and we're in the 3s. It's just ridiculous. I mean, the interest rates, and they're still super low, or as we'd say in Maine, super low, right? So the question is, should you refinance? The very first question that I always ask, and that I learned years ago, really good advice from a mortgage advisor a long time ago about whether you should refinance, was, how long are you going to be in that house? Are you going to be in that house for enough time for the value of the property to appreciate to overcome the cost of the refinance? So let me give you an example. In Southern California, where I'm at right now, where I record and live, value over the course of 5 years is almost guaranteed in the larger metros and the suburban areas around larger metros. The value is almost guaranteed to go up. That's just the only way it goes, because everything is so jam-packed here in Southern California. The values are going to go up. So if my wife and I, we plan to be here for more than 5 years, and if we're going to be here for more than 5 years, it is very likely that the value of our home would rise in value greater. The amount of increase in value would be substantially greater than the cost of refinancing the house. So if we could, then the second piece, right? So how long are you going to be in the house is number one. Number two is, can you save? And usually the rule of thumb that I go with, and that a number of advisors that I've heard of go with, if you can save at least a solid 1% on your interest rate, those numbers ripple out to a substantial benefit if you plan to stay in the house. If you don't plan to stay in the house, and the second question is, oh, we can save 1%, but we're going to be gone in 3 years, why? I mean, really? It's probably not going to add up to a benefit. It's probably going to, maybe break even. It's just not worth it. Because contrary to any commercial you've ever heard, there's no such thing as a free mortgage, a free 30-year mortgage. Somewhere there are costs blended into these things. People get paid. That's okay, but they're not free. So you just have to look at that. Question number one, are you going to be in the house for, let's say, at least 3 to 5 years? Because if you're in Kansas, in a much more rural area of Kansas, the value of your property may not go up at the same rate that property values go up here in Southern California. So with that, you really have to seriously think about refinance. I mean, the cost of refinance is not going to be that gigantically different in other places. The value of the home might be less. However, you still have costs associated with the transaction. So look at it. Number one, are you going to be in the house? Number two, are you going to save at least a point, right? Because then we get to the piece that this is where the math needs to come in. Let's just say, for Randy, to your question, if you're going to be there for more than 3 to 5 years, check 1. If you're looking to save at least a point on your mortgage, check 2. Good. Now, what kind of a mortgage should you get? Now, there are financial entertainers out there. There are financial advisors out there. There are mortgage advisors out there that are constantly beating this drum that you should get a 15-year mortgage. You're going to save so much money in interest, and if you pay off your house, then you can invest. There's a big name financial entertainer that that will go unnamed, but he is constantly saying that you should get a 15-year mortgage or try and pay off your house as fast as you can. Get your house paid off as fast as you can and then invest for retirement. Well, I'm going to call absolute hogwash on that because the math does not add up. The math just doesn't add up. If you're going to be in that house long term, a 30-year mortgage, when you hear me out on this, because a lot of you, I know you'll have a mental hernia and you'll say, well, wait a minute, I'll pay more interest if I get a 30-year mortgage. Wait for it, okay? If you have a 30-year mortgage, your payment is, let's say, here. If you have a 15-year mortgage, your payment is here. You got that? Those of you not watching on video, I'm moving my hands around. We're playing a little bit of show and tell. This gap, the gap between a 30-year mortgage and a 15-year mortgage, the payment gap can be hundreds of dollars, if not over $1,000 for some people. It's a pretty substantial amount of money. And people say, well, I'm paying more, but I'm going to save money on interest. That's fine. But what is our ultimate discussion about? Retirement, maximum lifestyle and retirement income. So you'll hear this idea, for example, and I'm going to change gears for a second so that you can see where this is going. You hear this example from financial folks and financial entertainers and so forth that says, with life insurance, you should always buy term insurance and invest the difference. Instead of buying cash value insurance where the premiums are way higher, you should buy cheap term insurance and invest the difference. That can work. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm saying that that is this hard line for a lot of financial advisors, financial planners, financial entertainers. That is a hard line. Never ever get cash value life insurance and always invest the difference. That's what you should do. Well, why doesn't that apply to getting a mortgage on a house? Well, it does actually. When you add up the math, when you actually do the math, and you take that difference, the delta between a 15-year mortgage and a 30-year mortgage on a home that you're going to be in long term, and you invest the difference between those two payments, and you invest the difference in your own account, and you invest and accumulate, guess what? In 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever that number is, you're going to have enough money in most cases to pay off the house and have money left over for retirement. Because, and I want you to hear this, and if you want to go through the math yourself, if you're thinking about doing a refinance and people are talking you into a 15-year mortgage, please, there are so many other reasons why, I say so many, there are other reasons why a 15-year mortgage is a terrible idea. Just a terrible idea from a risk management perspective. But if you want to go through that with a financial planner that it does not have a mortgage refinance horse in the race, send me an email, Kraig with a K at kraigstrom.com. But I've done the math. I've done it. That's the part that you never hear. Actually do the math. Compare a 15-year mortgage, pay it off. 15 years later, you start investing all of the money that you were paying on the mortgage for your retirement, right? Okay. So I'll give you an example in my wife and I's case. I will probably look at quasi-retirement at age 70. That's 20 years away for me. 20 years away. Because I like what I do. I'm not digging trenches, every single day and breaking my back. So I can choose to do heavy lifting and get my hands dirty when on the weekend. But I could work and do this for a long time. So let's use us as an example. So if I get a 15-year mortgage this year, I get a really good interest rate, no doubt. However, the 15-year and the 30-year interest rates are pretty darn close, okay? So I get a 15-year mortgage and I follow those financial entertainers and those financial planners who say, you should always pay off your mortgage as quick as you can and then invest in your retirement. Okay, I do that. Well, wait a minute. Now I'm 15 years down the road. I have all the money in my house paid off. All this money in this house where I'm standing today paid off. And now I have 5 years left to take the money that I'm not paying on the mortgage and I start invest. How many years do I have to compound that investment? 5. 5 years. That's it. So here's the phrase I want you to remember. Randy, thank you. It was an awesome question, but I want you to hear this phrase. Compound interest, compound earnings always beat amortized interest rates on loans that are similar. They always win. Compounding rates of return, where you earn more money on top of more money on top of more money, always come out ahead of an amortized loan where you are paying interest on a smaller and smaller and smaller amount of money. Over time, you are paying smaller amounts of interest, and on a compounding cycle, you are earning more and more interest. Compound interest trumps amortized interest. So the answer to the question is, in Randy's case, most likely, sounds like he's going to, from the details in his email, sounds like he and his wife, Sharon, are going to be in their house for a long time to come. Great. You can probably get at least a point off your interest rate now. Awesome. If you want to go through the details and more specifics, I would encourage you to do that. But when you get ready to choose 30 versus 15, do the math. Invest the difference and run that projection side by side with a 15-year mortgage. I think you'll be very impressed. The 30-year mortgage and invest the difference scenario is a really solid path. Because if we're honest with ourselves, how many people really stay in their houses for 10, 15, 20 years? Nowadays, not that many. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up today. Great question. Send your suggestions for money-saving apps and websites and things for the upcoming holiday season into November. I'd love to share your ideas on the podcast. Kraig with a K at kraigstrom.com. And a final reminder, now is also a perfect time to talk to family. Make sure that mom and dad have their living trust, their wills, their powers of attorney, all of those things buttoned up. You do not want to go through a probate nightmare, and we work with clients all over the country, and I'd be happy to help. Take care, folks. Bye now.